Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
My husband dumped me via text message. I'm leaving you and moving to Italy forever with my young beauty. Goodbye. By the way, I've already transferred all our accounts to myself, and I took the money from the safe too. I calmly replied, good luck. But when he realized what I had done, he understood that he was too late. An ordinary winter evening, I was returning from work, a bit tired but in a good mood. I planned to prepare dinner for my husband. I loved cooking, especially for Santiago. We had been together for almost 8 years, and it seemed to me that everything was fine. Of course, over the last 6 months, I noticed that he had begun to distance himself. He often stayed late at work, sometimes returned with the scent of unfamiliar perfume. But I tried not to think about the bad, believed that this was just a difficult period that we would overcome together. Entering the apartment, the first thing I did was check my phone, which I had left charging in the morning. A message from Santiago appeared on the screen. My heart strangely skipped a beat. I didn't even understand why, but I felt something was wrong even before I opened it. My fingers trembled slightly as I pressed the notification. I'm leaving you and moving to Italy forever with my young beauty. Goodbye, Elisa. By the way, I've already transferred all our accounts to myself, and I took the money from the safe too. For the first few seconds, I just stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what I had read. Was this some stupid joke, a prank? But Santiago never joked about such things. I read the message again and again until each word was imprinted on my brain like a brand. My throat went dry, my hands grew cold. But instead of the expected hysteria, a strange calmness appeared inside, the calmness of a person who subconsciously had long been waiting for a blow and now, having received it, almost feels relief. I slowly typed a response, just one word, good luck, sent it, and sat down on the couch. My mind was blank. I didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat staring at one spot. For some reason, I remembered how Santiago once said, "You're too calm, Elisa. Sometimes I feel like you don't care at all." I was offended then, but now I was grateful for my character. This calmness and ability to think rationally had helped me more than once in life. After sitting like that for an hour or an hour and a half, I finally got up and went to check the safe. Of course, it was empty. I looked in the closet. Half of Santiago's things had disappeared as if they had never been there. I opened the banking app on my phone. Our joint account was zeroed out. My personal account had only 6,000 pesos left, not much, but something. Santiago didn't know about its existence. I turned on the kettle and sat down at the kitchen table. I needed to think. What do I know about this young beauty? The image of the department's new employee immediately came to mind. Irma, a tall blonde with bright makeup and a loud laugh, my complete opposite. I had always been quiet, reserved, preferring naturalness in everything. Maybe that's why I became uninteresting to him. However, now it didn't matter. More important was that I was left almost without money, with a mortgage and a car loan that we had taken out together. But there was one thing that Santiago didn't know about, or, rather, had forgotten, and it was precisely this that could save me from complete collapse. Santiago and I met at a marketing conference. I had just graduated from college and was working as a junior specialist at a small agency. He was a representative of a large company, conducting a master class, tall, charismatic, confident. When such a man paid attention to me, I was on cloud 9. Couldn't believe my luck when after the conference he invited me to dinner. Our romance developed rapidly. Within a month Santiago introduced me to his parents, and after 6 months we started living together. His parents accepted me well, especially his mother Monica. She often said, "Elisa is so modest, domesticated. Not like these modern flibberty-gibbets." Then I rejoiced in her approval. Now I understand that she simply saw in me a convenient, obedient wife for her son who wouldn't create problems. We had our wedding a year after meeting the small one, only for close people. We spent our honeymoon in Greece. Everything was like a fairy tale, at least, so it seemed to me. After the wedding, Santiago suggested I quit my job and help him with his new business. He decided to open his own marketing agency. "You have an excellent education. You're talented. Why languish in someone else's company? Together we'll build something great. I agreed without hesitation. I wanted to be with my husband, help him, see how our common business grows. The first years were tough. We worked 12 to 14 hours a day, invested all earned money in development. I handled documents, kept the books, communicated with clients, while Santiago developed strategies and gave presentations. Gradually the business grew. We were able to rent a proper office, hire employees, and after another 2 years, the art agency became one of the leading ones in our city. It was then that I began to notice changes in Santiago. With the growth of the business, his ambitions and self-importance grew. He increasingly said, I achieved, although behind each of his successes was also my work. At corporate parties, he shone, basked in the admiration of employees, especially the female part of the team. I usually kept in the shadows, as I was accustomed to. Perhaps this was my mistake. I should have more often reminded everyone, including my husband, of my contribution to the common cause. 4 years ago, we bought an apartment on mortgage, a 2-bedroom, in a good area. I was so happy about having our own home, lovingly arranged every corner, thought that soon we would have children and our house would be filled with children's laughter. But Santiago always found reasons to postpone this question. Either the business required too much attention, or he wanted to close the mortgage first, or he simply wasn't ready for such responsibility yet. Over time, I accepted it, immersed myself in work, engaged in self-education, took advanced training courses, mastered new directions in marketing. It was then that I had the idea to expand our agency by adding content marketing and social media marketing services. At first, Santiago was skeptical about this venture, but when he saw the first results and the influx of new clients, he quickly changed his mind. Moreover, he began to present this initiative as his own. I didn't argue. After all, we were a family, and for me, our common success was more important than personal ambitions. Perhaps this was a mistake too. About a year ago, Irma appeared in our agency, young, bright, ambitious. She came to the position of head of the client relations department. To be honest, I immediately felt an aversion to her. There was something fake, affected about her. But Santiago insisted on her candidacy. She's the best in her field, with excellent recommendations, and besides, she'll attract new clients just by her appearance. I tried to object that appearance isn't the main thing in our business, professionalism is more important, but Santiago just waved it off. Don't be so conservative, Elisa. Business is not only dry figures and reports, it's also the ability to make an impression. With Irma's appearance, the atmosphere in the office changed. She flirted with all the men, including Santiago, constantly inventing reasons to stay late, need to discuss an important project. The client requires urgent changes in strategy. I saw how my husband's eyes lit up when she entered his office. I saw but drove away suspicions, didn't want to believe the obvious. And then the business trips began, first short ones, for a couple of days, then increasingly longer. Santiago explained this by the expansion of business, new contracts in other cities. I believed or wanted to believe until the moment when I accidentally saw a joint photo of Santiago and Irma on Instagram. They were in a restaurant in the city where supposedly business negotiations were taking place. They sat too close, smiled too happily. This was clearly not a business dinner. I deleted the app from my phone to no longer see such accidents. I decided that this was a temporary infatuation that would pass. Many men go through a midlife crisis, have affairs on the side, but ultimately return to the family. At least, that's what my mother said when I once hinted to her about my suspicions. 6 months ago, Santiago proposed to register our business as a limited liability company. Before this, we had worked as individual entrepreneurs. It will be more solid this way, and the tax advantages are obvious, he explained. I agreed but insisted that we be equal founders. Santiago hesitated a little, and then said, "Of course, dear, as you say." On the day of registering the LLC, I carefully studied all the documents before signing, and it's good that I did. The founding documents stated that Santiago owned 80% of the company, and I only 20%. When I pointed out this discrepancy with our agreement, he casually waved it off. "It's just a formality. You know that in reality, we share everything equally." I insisted on changing the documents. I remember how his face tensed when the lawyer corrected the figures. Then I attributed it to fatigue. Now I understand that it was the first clear signal that I should have noticed. After we registered the LLC, I had a strange feeling of anxiety. I began to monitor the company's financial operations more carefully and noticed several oddities. Money was being transferred to the accounts of contractors I had never heard of. The amounts were small but regular. When I asked Santiago about this, he explained that these were new partners who help with promotion in the regions. I pretended to believe but decided to conduct my own investigation. I found the contacts of these contractors and discovered that one of the companies belonged to Irma's brother, and the second was registered just a month ago to some student, clearly a fictitious entity for withdrawing money. That evening I thought for a long time about what to do. Direct confrontation could lead to a scandal and, possibly, to the breakdown of our marriage. On the other hand, I couldn't allow Santiago to continue withdrawing money from our common business. In the end, I decided to act quietly but decisively. The next day I went to our lawyer Felix Areno, elderly but very experienced specialist. I explained the situation and asked for advice. He listened attentively and suggested drawing up an additional agreement to the LLC charter, according to which any financial operations above a certain amount should be carried out only with the consent of both founders. He also recommended that I issue a power of attorney for conducting business on behalf of the company so that if necessary, I could act independently. I followed his advice. Santiago signed the documents without even reading them. He was so confident in my unconditional loyalty, or, possibly, already so disrespectful of me that he didn't consider me capable of decisive action. 3 months ago, another important event occurred. The company received a large government contract for developing a marketing campaign for one of the ministries. The amount was impressive, about 2 million euros. I was preparing documents for participation in the tender, developing the concept, conducting dozens of meetings with potential contractors. Santiago was on another business trip at this time. When we won the tender, he returned beaming with happiness. Irma was also glowing, although she had done absolutely nothing for this project. At the corporate party to celebrate the victory, Santiago gave a solemn speech in which he thanked everyone except me. He didn't say a word about my contribution, and when one of the employees tried to correct this injustice, mentioning my merits, Santiago just smiled tensely and quickly changed the subject. That evening, returning home, I seriously thought about divorce for the first time, not because of possible infidelity, not because of his neglect of my feelings, but because of the glaring injustice and disrespect he showed publicly. I lay awake while Santiago snored beside me, thinking about how our relationship had changed. Where did that attentive, caring man I once married go? Or was he never there, and I only saw what I wanted to see? The next morning I made a decision. If Santiago really plans to leave me, I should be ready. And the first step was ensuring my financial security. I met with Felix again and told him about my concerns. He listened to me with understanding and offered several options for action. The most radical, but also the most reliable, was changing the shares in the LLC. According to legislation, as a founder, I had the right to buy additional issued shares, thus increasing my share in the company. It was risky. Santiago could notice changes in the documents, and then a scandal would be inevitable. But I decided to take the risk. After all, it was about a business that we created together and in which I invested no less effort than he did. It turned out that performing this operation wasn't so simple. It required a decision of the general meeting of founders, that is, of Santiago and me. But Felix found a loophole. In our charter, there was a clause allowing one of the founders to make a decision in the absence of the second if the latter is on a long business trip and cannot attend the meeting. We waited until Santiago went on another trip with Irma, this time to Monaco. I convened an extraordinary meeting of founders, attended only by me and our lawyer. We made a decision to increase the authorized capital through additional issuance of shares. I contributed the necessary amount. As a result, my share in the company increased to 65%, and Santiago's share, accordingly, decreased to 35%. Everything was done legally, with all formalities observed, meeting protocol, changes to the charter, registration of changes at the tax office. When Santiago returned from Monaco, I didn't tell him anything. I decided he would discover the changes himself when the time came. In addition, I took several more steps to protect my interests. I opened a separate bank account that Santiago didn't know about, began to gradually transfer part of my salary. There's not so much that he would notice, but enough so that in case of necessity, I would have a reserve. I also made copies of all important company documents and kept them in a safe place. Perhaps someone will say that I acted dishonestly, that I should have openly talked with my husband about my suspicions and concerns. But what would that have changed? He would have denied everything, accused me of paranoia, made me feel guilty, and then still would have done what he planned. At least, that's what I thought then. The last month before that very message, Santiago was especially distant, rarely at home, answering my questions monosyllabically. Even our intimacy, already infrequent lately, came to naught. He explained it by fatigue, stress, concern about the business. I pretended to believe. A week before that fateful SMS, I accidentally saw on his computer an open page with airline tickets to Rome for two. My heart contracted, but I decided not to make a scene. I wanted to see how far he would go. And now, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea, I reread his message. I'm leaving you and moving to Italy forever with my young beauty. Goodbye, Elisa. By the way, I've already transferred all our accounts to myself. The money from the safe I took too. Some part of me still couldn't believe that this was happening for real, that the person with whom I lived for 8 years could do this, leave without even saying goodbye in person, take all the money, leaving me with nothing. But another part, more rational, was already analyzing the situation and thinking about further actions. I knew he would soon discover the changes in the ownership structure of the company, and then a real war would begin. I was right. The first call came after 3 days. Santiago's number appeared on my phone screen. I didn't answer. Then a message came, "We need to talk. Urgently." I ignored it, let him suffer, let him feel what it's like when you're ignored. The calls continued all day from different numbers, from him, from Irma, even from his mother. I didn't answer anyone. In the evening, another message came from Santiago. "What did you do with the company? How dare you change the shares without my consent? This is illegal, and you will regret it." I smiled, so he already knew, probably checking the state of the company's affairs, preparing for some machinations. Maybe he wanted to sell his share or use the business as collateral for obtaining a loan and discovered that his share was no longer what it was before. The next day there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw an enraged Santiago. He was banging on the door, shouting, demanding to open it. The neighbors probably heard all this noise, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to let him in. "Elisa, open up immediately. I know you're home, we need to talk." His voice trembled with rage. I was silent, standing on the other side of the door, my heart pounding wildly, palms sweating, but I didn't give in to the temptation to open. "If you don't open, I'll call the police. You stole my company." This threat made me smirk. Police? Seriously? And what would he tell them? That his wife, whom he dumped via SMS and whose money he stole, legally increased her share in their common business. After about 20 minutes, he left, continuing to threaten all kinds of punishment. I breathed a sigh of relief but knew that this was just the beginning. In the evening, Gloria, my best friend, called me. We had been friends since college, and she was one of the few people I completely trusted. "Elisa, are you okay? Santiago called me, asking if you were with me. He was saying some strange things about you stealing the company and running away." There was concern in her voice. I told her everything, about the message, the money, how I changed the share in the LLC. Gloria listened silently, occasionally gasping or cursing. "You're great, friend," she said when I finished. "Many in your place would just cry and feel sorry for themselves, but you acted, protected yourself. I'm proud of you." Her words gave me confidence. I really did everything right, protected what rightfully belonged to me too, a business that we created together. "What will you do now?" asked Gloria. "First, I'll go to the office tomorrow." Need to calm the employees, explain the situation, and then we'll see. The next morning, getting ready for work, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at my reflection and trying to see that strong, confident woman I wanted to be. I gathered my hair in a strict bun, put on a business suit that I usually saved for important meetings. I did minimal but careful makeup, let everyone see that I'm not broken, that I'm ready to fight. Before leaving, I checked my phone, 10 missed calls from Santiago, 5 from his mother, 3 from Irma, and 1 from an unknown number. There were also several messages, "We can resolve everything peacefully. Let's meet and talk. If you don't return my share to me, I'll sue you." The last message was from his mother. "Elisa, what are you doing? Why are you bringing the situation to a scandal? Santiago admits that he got carried away, but you're not so good either. Return everything as it was, and we'll forget about this misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? Is that what she calls it? Her son left his wife, stole money, left with a mistress, and it turns out to be a misunderstanding. I deleted all messages without answering and left the apartment. On the way to the office, I couldn't shake off a feeling of anxiety. What if Santiago was there too? What if he tried to create a scandal in front of the employees or worse, use physical force? He had never been aggressive before, but now, when his money and his ego were affected, who knows what he's capable of? To my relief, he wasn't in the office, but the atmosphere was tense, employees were whispering, giving me strange looks. Apparently, they already knew or guessed about the situation. Irma wasn't there either. I called our HR director Aurelia to my office and explained that from today Irma no longer works for the company. Her personal belongings needed to be packed and sent by courier to her home address, and access to corporate email and other resources immediately blocked. Aurelia didn't look surprised. "I had long suspected that there was something between her and Santiago," she said. "She flirted with him too openly and received too many privileges." Then I gathered all the employees in the conference room. I decided it was better to clarify everything right away than to allow rumors and speculations to destroy the working atmosphere. "As you may have already heard, there have been changes in my personal life," I began, trying to speak calmly and confidently. "Santiago and I are no longer together. He has decided to start a new life in another country." A whisper swept through the hall. I raised my hand, calling for silence. "Regarding the company, I remain its main owner and will continue to direct our work. All current projects will be completed on time, all obligations to clients and partners will be fulfilled. If anyone has questions or concerns, I am ready to discuss them individually." The employees were silent, processing the information. Finally, our technical director Igor raised his hand. "What about the government contract?" Santiago was the main contact person. "I have already contacted the ministry representatives and explained the situation. They agreed to reassign the contract to me. Work will continue according to the approved plan," I answered. After the meeting, several key employees approached me to express their support. Some admitted that they had long been dissatisfied with Santiago's management style, his favoritism toward Irma, his disregard for the ideas of other team members. "To be honest, Elisa, many of us stayed with the company only because of you," said Marina, our best designer. "You have always been fair, always listened and supported. We are glad that now you will be managing the company." These words touched me deeply. I had no idea that I had such support within the team. I always thought that employees respected Santiago more with his charisma and drive. The day passed in a flurry. There were many issues to resolve related to reissuing documents, access to the company's bank accounts, and current projects. Fortunately, thanks to the power of attorney that I had arranged in advance, I had all the necessary authority. In the evening, just as I was about to leave, I noticed an envelope on my desk. Inside was a note written in Santiago's familiar handwriting. "You will regret this. I will find a way to get back what rightfully belongs to me." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Threats didn't scare me. I was ready for the fight. At home, another surprise awaited me. The front door was slightly ajar. I clearly remembered locking it with all the locks in the morning. Carefully pushing the door, I looked inside. Someone had clearly been in the apartment, drawers pulled out, things scattered about, as if someone had been hastily searching for something. My first thought was to call the police, but then I noticed that nothing valuable was missing, not the TV, not the laptop, not even my few pieces of jewelry. But all the documents I kept at home had disappeared: our marriage certificate, the apartment contract, insurance policies. I immediately knew who did it: Santiago. He probably wanted to find company documents or some other papers that could help him in his fight against me. Fortunately, I had long ago moved all truly important documents to a bank safe deposit box. I still called the police and filed a report about illegal entry into the apartment. Not that I expected a serious investigation, but I wanted to have an official document just in case. The police officers, a young sergeant and his more experienced partner, examined the apartment, took statements, took some photographs. Apparently, the locks weren't broken. "Does anyone else have keys to your apartment?" asked the senior officer. "My husband," I answered. Or rather, my soon-to-be ex-husband. "We're in the process of divorce." The police officers exchanged glances. Such cases were apparently familiar to them. "If you suspect your husband, then this is no longer a break-in, but a family conflict." "But we'll still take the report," said the sergeant, clearly losing interest in the case. After they left, I first changed the locks, then called Gloria and asked to stay at her place for the night. It was a bit scary to be alone in the apartment. "Of course, come over. I just ordered pizza, we'll watch some movie, you'll take your mind off things," my friend readily responded. At Gloria's, I relaxed a bit. We watched some romantic comedy, talked about various nonsense, remembered our college years. For a while, I even forgot about my problems. But in the morning, reality returned in the form of a call from Felix, our lawyer. "Elisa, we have a problem. Santiago has filed a lawsuit in arbitration court, demanding that the decision on the additional issuance of shares be declared invalid and that the original distribution of shares in the LLC be restored." I expected something like this, but still, this news made my heart sink. A legal battle was beginning. "What is his lawsuit based on?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "He claims that he was not properly notified about the founders' meeting, that you deliberately chose a time when he was away to pull off this operation behind his back. Technically, that was true, but we did everything according to the law. Does he have a chance of winning?" Felix was silent, considering his answer. "There's always a chance, but we observed all the formalities. Notification of the meeting was sent to his corporate email and by registered mail to his home address. The fact that he didn't check his mail and didn't receive the letter is his problem. Besides, the charter clearly states the possibility of making decisions in the absence of one of the founders." This reassured me a bit, but I understood that a long battle lay ahead. "One more piece of news, and I'm afraid it's not very pleasant," continued the lawyer. "He has filed for divorce and is demanding division of jointly acquired property, including your share in the LLC. This was more serious. By law, property acquired during marriage is divided equally, and my share in the company theoretically was also subject to division. What should I do?" I asked, feeling panic starting to rise from within. "First of all, don't panic," Felix calmly replied. "We have several aces up our sleeve. First, he was the first to breach marital duty by leaving for another woman. Second, he took joint money without your consent, which can be regarded as embezzlement. Third, we can prove that the company was created mainly thanks to your efforts, and your contribution to its development was significantly greater than his. We agreed to meet at his office after lunch to prepare a response to the lawsuit and discuss defense strategy. I spent the whole day on pins and needles. Work was not going well. Thoughts constantly returned to the upcoming court proceedings. As if that wasn't enough, my mother-in-law called. "Elisa, what are you doing?" she began with reproach in her voice. "Why take this to court? Santiago is ready to forget and forgive everything if you return his share in the company to him." "Monica," I tried to speak calmly, although I was boiling inside, "your son dumped me via text message, stole our joint money, and left with his mistress. And now he's ready to forget and forgive? I'm sorry, but that sounds ridiculous." He made a mistake, yes. But who among us is without sin? Irma turned his head, but it's a temporary clouding of judgment. He already understands that family is more important. He realized this when he discovered that he no longer controls the company. I couldn't help making a caustic comment. My mother-in-law sighed. You've always been a smart girl, Elisa. Think about the future, about yourself. Santiago won't stop until he gets back what he considers his. He has connections, money. Do you really want to go to war with him? There was some truth in her words. Santiago was persistent and not used to losing. He did indeed have connections in business circles, among officials, but I wasn't going to give up either. Thank you for your concern, Monica, but I've already made my decision, and if you'll excuse me, I have to go to a meeting. I hung up without waiting for an answer, enough of allowing them to manipulate me. The meeting with Felix was productive. We prepared a response to the lawsuit, gathered documents confirming my contribution to the company's development, and also decided to file a counterclaim for property division, in which we pointed out the disappearance of money from joint accounts. Be prepared for this to drag on, warned the lawyer. Such cases are rarely resolved quickly, especially if one of the parties uses all possible ways to delay the process. I nodded. Time was working in my favor. The company continued to function under my leadership to bring in profit, while Santiago, as far as I knew, was currently without a stable source of income. Leaving the lawyer's office, I ran into Santiago. He was clearly waiting for me, leaning against his black BMW. Seeing me, he straightened up and walked towards me. We need to talk, he said without greeting. I stopped, keeping a safe distance. Not that I feared physical violence, but I preferred to be cautious. Talk, I replied briefly. Not here. Let's sit in the car or go somewhere for coffee. I'm fine here. If you have something to say, say it. He sighed irritably. You've always been stubborn. Fine, I propose a settlement. You return the controlling stake in the company to me, and I withdraw all lawsuits and don't demand division of property. I smirked. What about Italy? What about your young beauty? His face turned slightly red. That was a mistake. I got carried away. Things with Irma are already over. She turned out not to be the person I thought she was. What a coincidence. And you turned out not to be the person I thought you were. Elisa, stop. Let's talk like adults. We can resolve this peacefully, without courts, without scandals. You know what's most amusing, Santiago? I looked him straight in the eyes. If you had just come and said that you met someone else, that you wanted a divorce, I would have let you go. Possibly, I would have even agreed to divide the business. But you chose to act dishonorably, stole our money, ran away without even saying goodbye in person, and now you expect me to just forget about it and return everything to you. I'll return the money, he said quickly. Every penny, with interest if you want. It's not about the money, I shook my head. It's about the trust you betrayed, the respect you deprived me of. You know, I really did love you, believed in you, and you saw me only as a convenient appendage to the business. That's not true, he exclaimed. I loved you. I just got confused. Irma, she knows how to manipulate people, promised me golden mountains in Italy, said she had connections there, opportunities. And you, of course, believed her? I sneered contemptuously. You know, it's a pity she turned out to be as much of a liar as you. You would have made a perfect couple. His face contorted with anger. You'll regret this, Elisa. I won't stop until I get back what belongs to me. Are you threatening me? And what will you do? Break into the apartment again or hire someone to follow me? By the way, I've already changed the locks. He looked surprised. Apparently, he didn't expect me to guess his involvement in the break-in. I didn't take anything from the apartment, he tried to justify himself. Of course, the documents disappeared by themselves. Listen, Santiago, I have to go, I have a lot to do. All further communication through the lawyers. I turned and walked away, feeling his gaze on my back. Only after getting into a taxi did I allow myself to exhale. The conversation had drained me emotionally, but I was glad that I hadn't given in to his manipulations. The following weeks turned into a real war. Santiago used every possible means to regain control of the company. He filed lawsuit after lawsuit, tried to poach key employees, spread rumors about the company's financial problems among clients. But I didn't give up. I worked even harder to keep the business afloat. I personally met with important clients, convinced them of the company's stability, found new projects, new sources of income. The employees, to my surprise and joy, mostly remained loyal. Many said they had long wanted to work under my leadership without Santiago's constant pressure. One morning, arriving at the office, I found a large bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates on my desk. A note was attached to the bouquet. "Forgive me, I was an idiot. Let's start fresh." There was no signature, but I knew who it was from. I took the flowers to the common room, offering colleagues to help themselves to the chocolates. I answered questioning looks with just a smile. I didn't want to turn the office into an arena for personal disputes. Bouquets continued to appear every day. Gifts were added: expensive perfume that I once loved, a rare edition book I had long dreamed of, a silk scarf from a brand I preferred. Santiago clearly remembered all my preferences, all the little weaknesses, tried to influence my feelings, to remind me of the best times of our marriage, but I remained steadfast. I sent the gifts back or gave them to female employees, didn't answer his calls, deleted messages without reading them. Meanwhile, the first court hearing on his lawsuit to invalidate the change in LLC shares was approaching. Felix was optimistic but warned that Santiago would surely try to use all possible legal tricks. That's exactly what happened. At the hearing, Santiago's lawyer filed a petition for a financial audit of the company, claiming that the funds I contributed as payment for additional shares were, in essence, Santiago's own money. The court granted the petition, which meant a delay in considering the case for at least a month. I was disappointed but not surprised. Santiago was clearly trying to drag out the process, hoping to wear me down or find some leverage for victory. After the hearing, he approached me in the court corridor. He didn't look his best, gaunt, with bags under his eyes, and a wrinkled suit, clearly not the confident businessman he used to be. "Elisa, let's stop this," he said quietly. "We're just spending money on lawyers and audits. Isn't it better to come to an agreement? I've already told you my decision, Santiago. If you want to end the legal battle, withdraw your lawsuits. I'm not going to give you control of the company. You've always been too principled," he sighed. "But think about the practical side. While the courts are in session, the company is losing clients. I heard that the railways refused to cooperate due to the unstable situation with management." This was true, and it touched a nerve. The railways was a major potential client with whom we had been negotiating for several months. Their refusal was a serious blow. "And whose fault is that?" I responded sharply. "Who's spreading rumors about problems in the company? Who's calling clients and telling them tall tales?" He didn't deny it. "Business is war, Elisa. You should have understood that when you decided to play against me." "I'm not playing against you. I'm defending what I created with my own hands, what I invested 8 years of my life in." "Okay," he raised his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "Let's find a compromise. I agreed to equal shares, 50-50, and we manage the company together." I laughed. "After everything you did? You really think I could work with you again, trust you? People change. Elisa, I've changed. These months without you, without the business, they've taught me a lot. Happy for you, but my answer remains the same." I turned and walked toward the exit, but his next words made me stop. "What if I say I still love you?" I turned slowly. "Then I'll say that you're lying, just as you've been lying all these years. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me the way you did. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. But haven't you ever made mistakes?" "I have. My main mistake was believing you." With these words, I left the courthouse, feeling a strange mixture of fatigue and determination. Santiago wouldn't give up easily, that was clear, but I wasn't going to back down either. In the evening, Gloria called me. "How did the hearing go?" she asked without preamble. I told her about the court's decision, about the conversation with Santiago, about his attempts to pressure me through the business. "He's clearly desperate," my friend remarked. "First gifts, now declarations of love. What's next? Serenades under your window?" I couldn't help but smile. Gloria always knew how to lighten the mood with a joke. "You know, sometimes I wonder, is it worth it? Maybe it's easier to agree to his terms, divide the company, and live in peace." "Are you serious?" There was surprise in her voice. "After everything he did? After he left you, stole money, tried to take the business? And now you want to give up?" "No, of course not. It's just that sometimes fatigue overwhelms me. Every day is like a battle at work and court. Even at home I'm lonely. Come on, pull yourself together. You're strong. You're smart. You've already proven that you can run a business not worse, but even better than him. Don't let him break you psychologically." Gloria was right. I couldn't give up now, after everything I'd been through. "Thank you, friend. I don't know what I would do without you." That's what friends are for. By the way, I have an idea how to take your mind off things. This weekend my brother is having a barbecue at his country house. Let's go with us. Fresh air, good company, no talk about courts and ex-husbands. The idea was tempting. I really needed a rest, a chance to forget about problems, even if just for a short while. "Thanks, I'd love to join." The weekend at the country house turned out to be exactly what I needed, a quiet place by the river, pleasant company, no hustle and stress. Gloria's brother, Silvestre, was a hospitable host. He had recently divorced and seemed to understand my state well. "The first months are the hardest," he said when we were sitting by the fire in the evening. "Then it gets easier. You start to see opportunities, not losses." His words made me think. Indeed, I still perceived the situation with Santiago as a loss, as a tragedy. But what if I looked at it differently, as liberation from toxic relationships, as a chance to start a new life by my own rules? Returning to the city, I felt renewed. With new energy, I tackled work, preparation for court hearings. I also changed my appearance, got a new haircut, updated my wardrobe. I no longer wanted to be that quiet, inconspicuous Elisa who always remained in her husband's shadow. The employees noticed the changes. "You look great, Elisa," Marina said at one of the meetings. "So determined, energetic." I smiled. "Thank you, I feel better too, and I have new ideas for the company's development." At the meeting, I presented a plan to expand the agency's services, including new directions in digital marketing and analytics. I also suggested changing the company's name. Art was too strongly associated with Santiago and with the past. We needed something new that reflected the current philosophy of the company. The employees supported the idea. After a heated discussion, we settled on the name Impact Media. It reflected our approach to work, creating content and marketing strategies that truly impact the audience. Of course, renaming the company required legal formalization, but Felix assured me that it was possible, despite the ongoing litigation. "Effectively, you control the company now, and until the court rules in Santiago's favor, you have the right to make such decisions," he explained. We prepared the necessary documents and submitted an application to the tax office. Within 2 weeks, Art LLC officially became Impact Media LLC. Santiago's reaction wasn't long in coming. He filed yet another lawsuit, now to invalidate the company name change. He also started a campaign to discredit the new brand, spreading information that Impact Media was just a renamed Art, a company with unstable finances and dubious reputation. But his efforts didn't bring the desired result. The new name worked for us. Many clients didn't even connect Impact Media with the former Art, perceiving us as a completely new agency with a fresh approach to work. The business began to grow. We won several large tenders, including a contract to promote a new product line for a well-known cosmetic brand. The company's financial position strengthened so much that I was able to pay bonuses to all employees and even start setting aside funds for office expansion. Personal life also began to improve. I no longer felt lonely and abandoned. On the contrary, there was a sense of freedom, the ability to choose my own path without looking back at anyone's opinion. Silvestre, Gloria's brother, and I continued to communicate, first just as friends, spending time together with Gloria and her husband. Then we started meeting just the two of us, going to the movies, dinners at restaurants, long walks in the park. Nothing romantic, just pleasant friendly communication. But gradually I began to notice that I was looking forward to our meetings, that I smiled reading his messages, that I thought about him more and more often. He was unlike Santiago, calm, thoughtful, without ambitious plans to conquer the world. He worked as an engineer in a construction company, loved his job, but wasn't obsessed with career, valued simple joys, nature, a good book, and interesting conversation. "You're changing," Gloria told me one day. "Becoming more open, more alive." "Your brother has a good influence on me," I smiled. "He's changed too since you started communicating, became more cheerful, more energetic. I think you both positively influence each other." I wasn't ready to call our relationship with Silvestre a romance. The wounds from Santiago's betrayal were still fresh. But what had developed between us was definitely something more than just friendship. Meanwhile, the litigation continued. The financial audit didn't reveal any violations on my part. The funds contributed as payment for additional shares were indeed my personal savings, not Santiago's money, as he tried to prove. This was an important argument in our favor. But Santiago and his lawyers continued to find new reasons to delay the process, sometimes requiring additional examinations, sometimes petitioning to call new witnesses, sometimes asking to postpone hearings for various reasons. Felix assured me that this was a typical delaying tactic. "They hope you'll get tired and agree to a settlement. But we mustn't give in. Time is working for us. The company is thriving under your leadership, and that's a strong argument in your favor." He was right. Over time, the judge began to reject most of Santiago's petitions, seeing their clearly delaying nature. And finally, almost 6 months after the start of litigation, a decisive hearing was scheduled. That day I was more nervous than ever. I wore my best business suit, did careful makeup. I wanted to look confident and strong, although inside everything was trembling with tension. Silvestre offered to go with me, but I refused. This was my battle, and I had to go through it alone. In the courtroom, Santiago sat with his lawyer, not looking in my direction. He looked tense, constantly whispering something to the lawyer, nervously shuffling papers. The hearing began. Santiago's lawyer spoke first, repeating familiar arguments about violating the notification procedure, about my allegedly illegal actions, about me running the company bypassing his interests. Then Felix took the floor. Calmly and methodically he shattered each opponent's argument, providing documents confirming the legality of all my actions. He especially emphasized the fact that Santiago had effectively abandoned the company, leaving the country and not participating in its activities for an extended period. After the lawyer's speeches, the judge announced a recess to make a decision. Those half-hour of waiting seemed like an eternity to me. I sat in the corridor, trying to calm down, thinking about what would happen if we lost. I would have to give control of the company to Santiago, start all over again. Finally, we were invited back into the courtroom. The judge read the decision. The court denies satisfaction of Santiago Camargo's claim to invalidate the decision of the General Meeting of Founders of Art LLC, now Impact Media LLC, dated March 15, 2024. I didn't immediately grasp the meaning of these words. We won? Really won? Felix turned to me with a smile. Congratulations, Elisa, the court is on our side. I looked at Santiago. He sat with his head down, his shoulders slumped. His lawyer was saying something to him, probably about the possibility of appeal, but he seemed not to be listening. Leaving the courtroom, I took a deep breath. The feeling was strange, not jubilation, not triumph, but rather relief and also liberation, as if the last chains binding me to the past had finally fallen. What now? I asked Felix. Now we wait for the decision on the remaining lawsuits, but after today, I'm confident they will also be resolved in your favor. Santiago may appeal today's decision, but the chances of it being granted are minimal. I nodded. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have managed without your help. You underestimate yourself, Elisa. You're a strong woman, and I'm glad I could help you defend your rights. On the way home, I called Gloria and Sylvestra, told them about the court's decision. They were genuinely happy for me, offered to celebrate the victory, but I wanted to be alone, to process everything that had happened. At home, I opened a bottle of good wine, poured a glass, and sat by the window, looking at the evening city. The events of the past months flashed through my mind, the pain, the betrayal, the shock from Santiago's message, the fear of losing everything, the struggle for the business, new relationships, new feelings. I had gone through all of this and become stronger. I was no longer that quiet, inconspicuous Elisa who always remained in her husband's shadow. Now I knew my worth, my capabilities, and this knowledge gave me confidence in the future. The phone beeped, notifying of a new message from Santiago. Congratulations on your victory. You deserved it. I was wrong about many things. Forgive me if you can. I looked at these words, not knowing what to feel. Anger? Satisfaction? Pity? In the end, I felt nothing, neither hatred nor love. Santiago had become for me just a person from the past, an important but completed chapter of my life. I didn't reply to the message. Instead, I wrote to Sylvestra, "Thank you for being there all this time. It means more to me than you can imagine." His response came almost instantly, "I will always be there as long as you want me to be." I smiled. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new, something real. The next day I arrived at the office earlier than usual. I wanted to review current projects once more, prepare for upcoming negotiations with new clients. Without the pressure of litigation, I could fully focus on business development. The employees, learning about the court's decision, were genuinely happy. "Now we can work in peace without this constant tension," said Igor, our technical director. "Yes, and focus on new projects," added Marina. "I have a few ideas for the cosmetic brand's advertising campaign." We had a productive meeting, discussed current projects and plans for the future. The atmosphere was light, creative. Without Santiago's shadow constantly hanging over the company, everyone seemed to breathe easier. After the meeting, I noticed a courier waiting for me in the reception area with a bulky folder of documents. It was an official copy of the court's decision and other papers related to the case. Looking through the documents, I came across an interesting detail. The case materials mentioned Santiago's financial operations in the period before our breakup. He didn't just transfer money from our joint accounts, he also took several large loans on behalf of the company, funds from which he transferred to personal accounts. This explained his desperate desire to regain control of the business. He needed the company's money to cover these loans, otherwise he risked facing criminal prosecution for fraud. I showed these documents to Felix, who came to discuss further strategy for the remaining lawsuits. "Yes, we were aware of these operations," he nodded, "but decided not to use this information in court unless absolutely necessary. After all, it could lead to criminal prosecution, and I understood that despite everything, you wouldn't want such an outcome for your ex-husband." He was right. Despite all the pain and anger, I didn't wish prison for Santiago. It was enough that he had lost the business, reputation, and perhaps realized his mistakes. "What will happen with these loans now?" I asked. "Formally, they were taken on behalf of the company, and the company is obliged to repay them. But we have documents confirming that the funds were transferred to Santiago's personal accounts. We can file a lawsuit to invalidate these transactions and recover the funds from him personally." I thought about it. On one hand, these were significant sums that could be useful for business development. On the other, another round of litigation, more stress, and distraction from work. "Let's do it differently," I suggested after thinking. "Prepare the documents for the lawsuit, but don't file them yet. I'll try to talk to Santiago. Maybe we can reach an agreement peacefully." Felix nodded. A reasonable approach. After all, a peaceful agreement is always better than litigation. In the evening, I called Santiago. He picked up after the first ring, as if waiting for my call. "Elisa?" Surprise and, it seemed, Aurelia, anxiety/hope, were in his voice. "We need to talk," I said without preamble, "about the loans you took on behalf of the company." A pause. Then a heavy sigh. "I knew sooner or later you'd find out." "Why, Santiago? Why did you need this money?" Another pause, longer. "Irma. She convinced me to invest money in her project in Italy, some fashion boutique or something like that. Promised mountains of gold, quick returns. I believed her, gave her almost everything, and then she disappeared along with the money. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The story was so banal, so predictable that it seemed almost comical. A successful businessman who believed the tales of a young adventuress, a classic plot. And that's why you so desperately tried to regain control of the company, to cover these debts?" "Yes. At first. Then I really realized that I had lost something more than money's lost you, our life together, the business we built from scratch." His voice sounded sincere, but I knew too well how convincing he could be when it suited him. "What are you going to do about the loans?" I asked directly. "I don't know. I have almost no money left, no job either. My reputation in business circles is ruined. Maybe I'll have to sell the apartment, the car." "What about Italy? I thought you had settled there." A bitter chuckle. "What Italy? I spent only a week there. When I realized Irma had deceived me, I returned home. Since then I've been living with my parents, like a teenager. I felt a little sorry for him, a little, but not enough to forget everything he had done. Listen, Santiago, I know about the loans, and I have evidence that the money was transferred to your personal accounts. I could file a lawsuit to invalidate these transactions and recover the funds from you personally." But weariness was in his voice. "But I propose a different solution. The company will take on the repayment of these loans. In exchange, you officially renounce all claims to the business, withdraw the remaining lawsuits, and sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding the details of our divorce and all related circumstances." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Why are you doing this, Elisa, after everything I did?" "Not out of pity, if that's what you're thinking, and not out of love. I just want to close this chapter definitively, without courts, without scandals, without constantly returning to the past." Thank you, I agree to your terms." "Good, Felix will prepare all the necessary documents. And, Santiago, I hope you really learned lessons from all this. More than you can imagine." With that, we ended the conversation. I felt neither triumph nor bitterness, only a strange calm and confidence that I had done the right thing. The next day, Felix and I prepared all the necessary documents. Santiago signed them without objection. All remaining lawsuits were withdrawn, all claims dropped. Our marriage was officially dissolved, property divided, the company remained with me, the apartment and car with him. The loans were more complicated, the amount was significant, and payments could become a serious burden on the company's budget. But we developed a debt restructuring plan that allowed spreading payments over a longer period without detriment to current operations. Life gradually entered a new course. Impact Media thrived under my leadership. We expanded the staff, moved to a more spacious office, began working with foreign clients. My relationship with Sylvestra developed slowly but surely. We didn't rush, both understanding that each of us had an unsuccessful marriage and related psychological traumas behind us. But the more time we spent together, the clearer I understood that this was exactly the person I wanted to be with. One evening, as we sat on the veranda of his country house, watching the sunset, he took my hand. "You know, when I first saw you, I thought, here's a woman who is too good for me," he said with a slight smile. "Why?" I was surprised. "You were so composed, purposeful, a successful businesswoman fighting for your cause, and I'm just an engineer without special ambitions. I thought you needed someone brighter, more matching your status." I laid my head on his shoulder. "You know, I actually appreciated that you don't try to seem brighter than you are, don't try to impress me or outdo me. You're just genuine, and that's exactly what I need now." He hugged me, and we sat like that, watching as the last rays of the sun painted the sky in pink and golden hues. At that moment, I felt truly happy for the first time in a long time. Of course, I realized it was still early to talk about a serious relationship. We were both cautious and didn't want to repeat past mistakes. But something told me that with Sylvestra everything would be different. Several more months passed. Impact Media continued to grow and develop. We launched several successful projects, expanded our client base, and hired new talented employees. I fully immersed myself in work, enjoying the process and results. I hardly thought about Santiago. After our last conversation and signing all the documents, he disappeared from my life. I heard from mutual acquaintances that he had gotten a job at some small marketing agency and was starting everything from scratch. There was something ironic in this turn of fate, but I felt neither gloating nor pity, just noted the fact and moved on. One day, passing by a restaurant in the city center, I saw him through the window. He was sitting at a table, dressed in a simple sweater instead of his usual expensive suits, and animatedly discussing something with the man across from him. I stopped for a moment, looking at him. He looked different, less pompous, more ordinary. His gestures no longer had that commanding self-confidence that once both attracted and irritated me. I could have gone in, said hello, asked how he was doing, but instead I just walked on. Our story was finished, the page turned. Each of us now had our own life, and they didn't intersect. Sylvestra and I continued dating. Gradually our relationship deepened, became closer. We began to discuss the possibility of living together, but decided not to rush. Both valued our personal space and independence. One weekend, we went to his country house. The weather was beautiful, and we decided to have a small picnic by the river. We spread out a blanket, took out a basket of food and a bottle of wine. You know, I've been wanting to tell you something for a long time, Sylvestra began when we settled on the blanket. My heart skipped a beat. This phrase rarely foretells anything good. Did something happen? I asked warily. He smiled, noticing my concern. Nothing bad, don't worry. Just, remember, I told you I was working on a project at the company? I nodded. He often mentioned some important project, but didn't go into details. Well, it's not quite an ordinary project. I'm developing my own smart home system. I've already received a patent for some technical solutions, and several large companies have shown interest. Sylvestra, that's wonderful. I was genuinely happy for him. Why didn't you tell me more about it before? He shrugged. I didn't want to talk about it until there were concrete results. Too many times I've seen promising projects fall apart at the initial stage. And what are the results now? Very good. One technology company offered to buy the patent for a quite decent sum. Another is interested in long-term cooperation. I'm thinking about founding my own company. I looked at him with surprise and pride. The modest engineer without special ambitions, as he called himself, turned out to be a talented inventor and potential entrepreneur. Why did you decide to tell me about this right now? I asked. He was silent for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. Because if I establish a company, I'll have to leave my current job. It's a risk, and I wanted you to know about it, to understand what you might be getting into if you decide to stay with me. I was touched by his concern. Most men in his place would simply announce their decision as a fact, not interested in their partner's opinion. Santiago always did that, made decisions unilaterally, and then presented me with the fact. I'll support any decision you make, Sylvestra, and I believe in your success. He smiled with relief. There's one more thing. If everything goes according to plan, I'll have to spend a lot of time traveling, negotiations, presentations, looking for investors. And I thought, maybe we should live together. That way we could see each other more often, despite my busy schedule. I didn't expect such a turn. We had talked about living together, but always postponed concrete plans to an indefinite future. Are you sure? It's a big step. Absolutely sure. But if you think it's still too early. I nestled against him. No, it's not too early. I think it's an excellent idea. So began a new chapter in my life. We decided to live in my apartment since it was more spacious and located closer to the city center, which was convenient for both of us. Sylvestre moved in his things, and I was surprised to discover how easily we fit into each other's daily lives. No drama, no arguments about territory or habits, just a calm, comfortable coexistence of two adults who respect each other's space and peculiarities. His business developed faster than we expected. The smart home system developed by Sylvestre had several unique functions that favorably distinguished it from existing market analogs. He received an offer from a major investor and founded his own company, Smartest Solutions. Impact Media also continued to grow. We won several prestigious awards in marketing and advertising, which attracted even more clients. The company's financial position stabilized so much that I was able to pay off the loans that Santiago had taken out ahead of schedule. Life seemed to have finally settled down, but as they say, happiness loves silence, and the universe seemed determined to test how much stronger I had become during this time. It all started with an anonymous email that came to the company's corporate mail. It contained documents allegedly proving that Impact Media was using illegal working methods, deceiving clients, and evading taxes. The documents were skillfully fabricated and at first glance looked convincing enough. Fortunately, this letter came to me first, not to one of the employees or, what would have been worse, to clients. I immediately contacted Felix. He carefully studied the documents and confirmed my suspicions. It was a forgery, and a rather professional one. "Someone really wants to harm you and the company," he noted. "Any ideas who it might be?" My first thought was about Santiago, but it seemed strange. We had reached a settlement agreement. All claims had been dropped. Why would he now, after so much time, return to the conflict? I'm not sure, but we need to be prepared that this may happen again and the letter may be sent to someone else. I recommend contacting the police, recording the fact of defamation. It's also worth warning key clients and partners that an information attack may be conducted against the company. I followed his advice, filed a report with the police, although I didn't hold much hope for an investigation. I held meetings with the most important clients, explained the situation, assured them of the transparency of all our operations. Most were understanding. After all, over the years of work, we had earned a reputation as a reliable partner. But the anonymous attacks didn't end there. A week later, negative reviews about Impact Media began appearing on social networks, supposedly from former clients dissatisfied with the results of our work. The posts were competently written without obvious signs that the same person was writing them. But I knew it wasn't true. We carefully monitored the quality of services, and most clients stayed with us for many years. We promptly responded to each negative review, contacted official representatives of the companies that supposedly left these reviews. They confirmed they had nothing to do with these publications and helped us remove the fake posts. But the damage to reputation had already been done. Several potential clients refused to cooperate, citing ambiguous reviews online. We had to launch a special PR campaign to neutralize the negativity. This cost time and money that could have been spent on business development. I had little doubt about who was behind these attacks, but proving it was practically impossible. Anonymous emails, fake accounts on social networks, no traces leading to a specific person. But then something happened that confirmed my suspicions. One evening, Aurelia, our HR director, called me. She usually didn't bother me after work, so the call immediately put me on alert. "Elisa, sorry to disturb you, but I thought you should know this immediately. Irma just called me." "Irma?" I repeated, although I perfectly understood who she was talking about. "Yes, that former employee of ours who, well, you understand." "What did she want?" "She offered me a job at a new agency, said they are actively growing and ready to pay twice as much as I get from you. And she also hinted that soon Impact Media would have problems and it's better to leave in advance." I tensed up. "What kind of problems exactly?" She didn't specify, but said it was somehow connected with a tax audit and the loss of key clients. So that's it. Now the picture began to come together. Anonymous letters, negative reviews, attempts to poach staff, all this sounded like a systematic campaign to discredit the company, and Irma was clearly behind it. "Thank you for letting me know, Aurelia. I really appreciate your loyalty." "I never trusted that woman from the beginning," the HR director snorted. And I certainly don't intend to work for her now. After this conversation, I immediately contacted Felix and told him about the new turn of events. This changes things, he said thoughtfully. Now we have a witness who can confirm that Irma is spreading information that damages the company's business reputation. We can file a lawsuit to protect business reputation and recover damages. But will that be enough? She didn't directly admit that she's behind the anonymous letters and reviews. No, but it's a lead. Besides, if we file a lawsuit within the framework of judicial proceedings, we can request information about her current place of work, financial position. Perhaps other interesting facts will surface. We decided to act, filed a lawsuit against Irma for protection of the company's business reputation. At the same time, we strengthened work with clients and partners, convincing them of the reliability and professionalism of Impact Media. In parallel, I began my own investigation. I was interested in where Irma was working now and where she got the funds to launch a new agency. Judging by the fact that she could offer double the salary to our HR director, she had considerable money. I reached out to several of Irma's former colleagues with whom I had maintained good relationships. One of them, who worked at a large advertising agency, informed me that recently Irma had come to them with a presentation of her new company, Sun Media. The agency, according to him, was small but ambitious, offered a full range of marketing services, and aggressively hunted for clients, including ours. The name didn't surprise me. Self-obsessed Irma couldn't help but reflect her name in the company's name. But I was interested in something else. Who was behind the financing of this project? Irma, as far as I knew, didn't have that kind of money. Unless. And then it hit me, what if Santiago was behind all this? What if they were together again and this was their joint revenge? I shared my suspicions with Silvestre. He listened attentively, without interrupting, and then suggested, "Let's check. I have a friend who works in security. He could check if there's a connection between Santiago and this Sun Media." I hesitated. This already smelled of industrial espionage, which wasn't quite legal, but on the other hand, I needed to protect my company, my employees. "Okay, but let him act carefully. I don't want any problems with the law." Silvestre's friend turned out to be a real professional. Within a couple of days, we had information that Sun Media was registered 3 months ago. Irma was listed as the sole owner, but among the employees were several former workers from ART. And most interestingly, the company rented an office in a business center owned by Santiago's parents. This didn't prove a direct connection, but it was suspicious enough. I decided to dig deeper. Through the same specialist, we gained access to Sun Media's corporate email, and there we found direct evidence, correspondence between Irma and Santiago, in which they discussed a plan to destroy Impact Media's reputation and poach our clients. Santiago wrote, "The main thing is to act gradually, first anonymous letters, then negative reviews, then attempts to poach personnel. When the company weakens, we'll start working with their clients, offering the same services, but cheaper." Irma replied, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Soon Elisa will regret crossing our path. We'll take everything from her, clients, reputation, business. She'll be left with nothing, as planned." Reading these lines, I felt anger rising inside, so they weren't just trying to create a competing agency, they were systematically working to destroy my company. But now I had evidence. I immediately contacted Felix and forwarded him all the correspondence. "This is serious evidence of unfair competition and defamation," he said after reviewing the materials. "But there's one problem. This evidence was obtained illegally. We can't use it in court." I understood this, but now I knew who I was dealing with and understood their methods. That was already an advantage. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "We continue the official legal proceedings on the lawsuit for protection of business reputation. In parallel, we can appeal to the tax office with a request to audit Sun Media. If they really aren't clean with finances, this could create serious problems for them." This sounded reasonable, but I felt it wasn't enough, too slow, too official. And Irma and Santiago would continue their campaign, and by the time it came to court or tax audit, Impact Media's reputation might already be irreparably damaged. Something more decisive was needed, and I had an idea. What if we arrange a meeting for them with their own methods? They want wars, they'll get it. Felix looked at me with some concern. Elisa, I wouldn't recommend responding to illegal actions with your own illegal ones. It may only complicate the situation. I'm not talking about illegal actions, I clarified, just more active defense. That evening, Sylvester and I discussed the situation for a long time. As always, he was my support and backbone. What are you planning to do? He asked. I think it's time for direct confrontation. I want to meet with Irma face to face, show her that I know about her plans, and make it clear that if she doesn't stop, the consequences will be serious. Sylvester frowned. This could be dangerous. You don't know what she's capable of. I'm not afraid of her, and I won't let her destroy what I've built for years. After much persuasion, Sylvester agreed, but insisted on accompanying me. I'll wait in the car. If something goes wrong, just call, and I'll come right away. The next day, I called Irma. I still had her number from the time when she worked at our company. To my surprise, she picked up almost immediately. Elisa? Surprise and wariness were in her voice. Yes, it's me. We need to talk, Irma. About what? We have no common topics for conversation. About your company Sun Media, about your plans to destroy Impact Media, about your collaboration with Santiago. Pause. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. And I suggest discussing this in person, not over the phone. Today at 6 p.m. sharp at Cafe Central. Come alone. Another pause, longer. Okay, but keep in mind, I won't be alone either. That's your business, but the conversation will be only between us. At the appointed time, I was already sitting at a table in the far corner of the cafe. Sylvestra, as promised, was waiting in the car in the parking lot, ready to come to my aid at any moment, but I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Irma appeared at exactly 6, dressed in an expensive business suit with immaculate styling and bright makeup, still as striking, self-confident. Behind her walked a large man in a dark suit, clearly a bodyguard. She said something to him, and he remained at the entrance while she headed to my table. Hello, Elisa, she said, sitting across from me. Long time no see. Hello, Irma, thank you for coming. Curiosity got the better of me. What did you want to discuss? I took a folder with printouts from my bag and placed it in front of her. This. She opened the folder, skimmed through the first pages, her face changed, the smile disappeared, her eyes narrowed. Where did you get this? It doesn't matter. What matters is that I know about your plans. I know that you and Santiago are trying to destroy my company, and I won't let you do it. She slammed the folder shut and pushed it away. And what are you going to do? Sue? These documents were obtained illegally. They have no legal force. I've already filed a lawsuit for protection of business reputation and unfair competition. But you're right, these specific documents I won't use in court, they're for something else. For what? Irma leaned back in her chair, clearly trying to keep her cool. For a conversation with your clients, with your investors, with the tax office, finally. I think they'll be interested to learn what methods Sun Media uses. She tensed up. You're bluffing. You won't take such a risk. What do I have to lose, Irma? You and Santiago are already trying to destroy my company. Why shouldn't I try to protect it by all available means? She looked at me carefully, as if assessing how serious my intentions were, then looked at the folder. What do you want? Cessation of all attacks on Impact Media. No anonymous letters, no fake reviews, no attempts to poach personnel or clients. You mind your business, I'll mind mine, fair competition, if you want. And if we refuse? Then these documents will be everywhere, with your clients, with investors, at the tax office, with the police. Yes, they were obtained illegally, but they are authentic, and they will destroy your reputation, which hasn't even had time to form yet. Irma looked at me with hatred. You've always been a bitch, Elisa, you just skillfully hid it. Santiago used to tell how you played your game all these years, pretended to be quiet and modest, while manipulating him, using his talent and charisma to promote the company. I almost laughed. Is that what Santiago said? The same Santiago who dumped me via text message, stole our joint money, and ran away with you to Italy? How can you believe a man who betrayed his wife? Aren't you afraid he'll do the same to you? Her face faltered. That's different. He loves me, but he was using you. Of course, Irma, whatever you say to justify yourself, but the fact remains, you're engaged in illegal activities trying to destroy my business, and I won't let you do it. I stood up, preparing to leave. You have 3 days to stop all attacks. If even one new anonymous email or negative review appears during this time, I'll take action. And believe me, you won't like the consequences. Irma also rose. You'll regret this, Elisa. We won't stop until we get back what belongs to Santiago. He doesn't own anything in Impact Media or in my life, and the sooner you both understand this, the better for you both. With these words, I left the cafe. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange satisfaction. For the first time, I was openly confronting those who tried to harm me. I wasn't hiding, wasn't avoiding conflict, but looking it straight in the eye. Sylvester was waiting for me in the car, as promised. How did it go? He asked when I sat beside him. I don't know, we stated our positions, but I'm not sure she'll listen. What will you do next? We'll see. I gave her 3 days to think. If the attacks continue, I'll have to act more decisively. But the attacks didn't continue. The next day, all negative reviews on social media were removed, and anonymous emails no longer came. Irma, it seemed, had accepted my terms. I wasn't deluding myself. I understood that this was most likely a temporary truce. They would think of new ways to harm me, more subtle, less obvious. But now I was prepared, and they knew it. A week after my meeting with Irma, I accidentally ran into Santiago at the business center where the Impact Media office was located. He was standing by the elevator, apparently waiting for someone. Seeing me, he noticeably tensed. Elisa, he nodded restrainedly. Santiago? I answered just as dryly. What are you doing here? I have a meeting at the agency on the 14th floor. I nodded. I didn't believe a word, but I didn't want to continue the conversation. It was enough to show that I wasn't afraid of him and didn't avoid meeting him. We waited for the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, I stepped forward, but he stopped me, lightly touching my arm. Elisa, wait. I'd like to talk. I looked at him carefully. There was no longer the former confidence in his eyes, rather, some kind of fatigue. About what? About us, about what happened, about what's happening now. There is no us anymore, Santiago. And what's happening now, these are the consequences of your own decisions. I know, and I regret it. I really do. Irma. She's not what I thought. She used me, my money, my connections, and now that she's gotten what she wanted, her attitude has changed. It was almost funny to me. History was repeating itself, only now Santiago was in the position of the deceived one. And what do you want from me? Sympathy? Help? He shook his head. I just wanted to apologize for everything, for how I left, for how I behaved afterward, for trying to take the company from you. I was wrong. I looked at him, trying to understand. Was he sincere or was this another manipulation? Thank you for the apology, Santiago, but it doesn't change anything. I know. I just thought I should say it. And also, these attacks on your company, it was Irma's idea, not mine. I tried to talk her out of it, but she's obsessed with revenge. But you participated in it. I saw the correspondence. He looked embarrassed. Yes, I participated, and that was a mistake. Another one in a long list. The elevator arrived, the doors opened. I stepped inside. Goodbye, Santiago. I hope in the future you'll make fewer mistakes. The doors began to close, but he managed to say, I'm glad you're doing well, Elisa. You deserve happiness. I didn't answer, watching as the floor numbers replaced each other on the elevator display. The conversation with Santiago left a strange feeling, not pain, not anger, rather a slight sadness for what could have been but didn't happen. Good news was waiting for me at the office. We had won a tender for an advertising campaign for a major pharmaceutical company. The project was large-scale and prestigious, exactly what Impact Media needed to strengthen its position in the market. I immersed myself in work with renewed vigor, formed a team for the project, developed a strategy, and scheduled meetings with the client. It was a real challenge, and I was ready to accept it. In the evening, I told Sylvester about the meeting with Santiago. He listened attentively, without interrupting. "And what do you feel now?" he asked when I finished. Strangely, almost nothing. I look at him and see just a person I was once connected with. I feel neither love nor hatred, only relief that it's all behind me. He hugged me. "That's good, it means you've really let go of the past." We sat on the balcony, watching the sunset. I thought about how my life had changed over the past year, from the quiet, inconspicuous Elisa, who always remained in her husband's shadow. I had turned into a strong, independent woman capable of standing up for herself and her business. It was a difficult path, full of pain, disappointments, and doubts, but I walked it and became stronger. Life went on. Impact Media thrived under my leadership. We launched new projects, expanded our client base, implemented innovative approaches in marketing. I finally felt that I was doing what I truly loved and could do best. Sylvester's company was also developing successfully. His smart home system gained recognition in the market. The first large orders appeared. He worked a lot, often went on business trips, but always found time for us, for our relationship. I hardly heard anything about Irma and Santiago. According to rumors, their agency's Sun Media didn't last long, only about a year. There were few clients, little money. In the end, they closed, and Irma moved to the capital, trying to start over. Santiago, as I heard, got a job as a creative director at a small advertising agency and was gradually restoring his reputation in professional circles. This didn't affect me. I had my own life, my own concerns, my own joys. Sylvester and I were gradually building our relationship, getting to know each other better and becoming closer. It wasn't like the rapid passion that once flared between Santiago and me, rather, a calm, deep feeling based on mutual respect, trust, and common interests. One weekend, Sylvester suggested going to the country house. The weather was beautiful, warm and sunny, despite the beginning of autumn. We left early in the morning to spend the whole day in nature. The country house was small but cozy, a wooden house surrounded by a garden, a small gazebo by the river, a boat moored to a homemade pier. Everything here breathed calmness and tranquility. We spent the day doing minor repairs, cooking lunch over an open fire, and simply enjoying each other's company. In the evening, when the sun began to set, Sylvester suggested going for a boat ride. We floated on a quiet river, surrounded by an autumn forest. Golden and red leaves reflected in the water, creating the impression that we were floating on a colorful mirror. It was quiet, only the oars splashed in the water, and occasionally the cry of a passing bird was heard. Sylvester was rowing, and I sat at the bow of the boat, admiring the landscape. At some point, he stopped rowing, and the boat gently rocked on the water. "Elisa," he called. I turned. He was looking at me with a special tenderness. "I'd like to ask you something." My heart suddenly beat faster. "Yes?" He took a small velvet box from his pocket, opened it. Inside sparkled a ring with a small but elegant diamond. "Will you marry me?" I looked at the ring, at his face, and felt my eyes filling with tears, not from grief, not from fear, but from happiness, pure, unclouded happiness. "Yes," I answered, and my voice trembled. "Yes. Of course, yes." He carefully put the ring on my finger. It was just right, as if made for me. We embraced, balancing in the boat, risking tipping over, but we didn't care. At that moment, there were only the two of us and our happiness. We decided to have the wedding in 6 months, in spring, a small one, only for close friends and relatives, no pomp, no excess, just a celebration for those who are dear to us. News of our engagement quickly spread among friends and colleagues. Many were sincerely happy for us. Some, especially those who knew the story with Santiago, were surprised that I decided to remarry so soon. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Gloria asked when I showed her the ring. After everything that happened with Santiago. "Absolutely sure," I answered without hesitation. Silvestre is not Santiago, and our relationship is completely different, based on mutual respect, honesty, support. What I feel for him is not blind passion, not dependency, it's real love, mature, conscious. She smiled and hugged me. "I'm happy for you, friend. You deserve happiness. And my brother, he's a good man, and I see how much he loves you." Wedding preparations were in full swing. We chose a venue, made a guest list, ordered decorations. I found a simple but elegant dress that emphasized my figure but wasn't too elaborate. A month before the wedding, something unexpected happened. I received an email from Santiago. "Congratulations on your engagement. I wish you happiness. If possible, I would like to meet. There's a conversation that's better to have in person." I thought for a long time about whether to respond. On one hand, I didn't want to return to the past, especially now when I was so happy. On the other hand, I was curious about what he wanted to say. In the end, I agreed to meet at the same central cafe where I once talked with Irma, neutral territory, many people around. Santiago arrived on time. He looked quite good, although he had noticeably aged over these years, gray at the temples, wrinkles around the eyes, but still fit and well-groomed. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said, sitting across from me. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked directly, not wanting to waste time on small talk. He sighed. "I heard about your engagement and wanted to personally congratulate you, sincerely." "Thank you. But you could have done that by email or phone." "I could have, but there's something else. I'm moving to the capital. I received an offer from a large agency, the position of creative director, a good opportunity to start with a clean slate." "I'm happy for you. But again, what does this have to do with me?" "Directly, probably nothing. I just wanted to apologize once more for everything and say that I won't interfere in your life or your business anymore. This is a final goodbye." I looked at him carefully, trying to understand if he was sincere. And to my surprise, I felt neither anger nor resentment, only a slight sadness for what could have been but didn't work out. "Thank you, Santiago, I appreciate this. And I too say goodbye to the past without grudges and without regrets." He nodded. "One more thing, I'd like to return this to you." He took a small box from his pocket and handed it to me. I opened it. Inside was a gold chain with a sun-shaped pendant, a gift from my grandmother, which I thought was long lost. "Where did you find it?" I asked, examining the chain in surprise. "It was always with me. You took it off before showering on the day I left." I took it. I don't know why. Maybe as a reminder of you. But now I want to return it. It belongs to you. I took the chain, thanked him. A strange feeling came over me. This wasn't just a chain, it was a symbol of closure, of ending that chapter of life that had long troubled me. "Good luck to you in the capital, Santiago, and in life. And happiness to you, Elisa, with your fiancé, with your business. You deserve the very best." With that, we parted. I left the cafe with a light heart, holding my grandmother's chain in my hand. It was symbolic that it returned to me right now, when I was preparing to begin a new chapter of life. At home, Silvestre met me with slight concern. "How did the meeting go?" he asked, kissing me. "Well, calmly, peacefully. He's leaving for the capital, wanted to say goodbye and returned this to me." I showed him the chain. Silvestre looked carefully at the jewelry, then at me. "Are you glad it's back?" "Yes, it's a memory of my grandmother and a symbol that the past has finally released me." He hugged me tightly, pressed me to himself. "I love you, Elisa, and I'll do everything so that you never regret your choice." "I know, and I love you too with all my heart." The wedding went exactly as we planned, small, cozy, among the closest people. I was in a simple but elegant dress, Sylvester in a stylish gray suit. Gloria, my best friend and now also sister, couldn't hold back tears when we exchanged rings. After the official part, we held a reception at a country restaurant, nothing elaborate, just good food, good music, pleasant conversation. I was happy, truly happy for the first time in a long time. We spent our honeymoon in a small town on the Italian coast. The irony of fate, the country to which Santiago once fled with Irma now became the place of Sylvestra's and my happiness. Small streets, beaches with crystal clear water, cozy little restaurants serving the freshest seafood, we enjoyed every moment, every day spent together. One day, sitting on the terrace of our hotel with a glass of wine, I told Sylvester the whole story of how I received the SMS from Santiago, how I discovered that he had taken all the money, how I fought for the company, how I went through courts and confrontations with my ex-husband and his mistress. "You're an amazing woman, Elisa," he said when I finished. "So strong, so determined. Most people in your place would have simply broken down. I could have broken down too. There were moments when I wanted to give up, surrender. But something inside wouldn't let me, maybe pride, maybe a sense of justice, I don't know. It's strength of spirit, an inner core, what makes you special." We were silent, looking at the sunset over the sea. Then I asked, what would have happened if Santiago hadn't sent me that message? If he hadn't stolen the money? Hadn't run away with Irma? Would we have continued living together, not knowing that he didn't really love me, but was just using me? Sylvester thought about it. Who knows? Maybe. But I believe that sooner or later the truth always comes out. And a painful revelation is better than living in an illusion. He was right, that message, so cruel, so merciless, was actually a gift of fate. It opened my eyes, made me act, fight, and ultimately led to true happiness. Returning from our honeymoon, we immersed ourselves in ordinary life, work, home, plans for the future. We decided not to rush into having children yet, wanted to enjoy time together, strengthen our relationship, achieve even greater success in business. Impact Media continued to grow and develop. We opened a branch in the capital, started working with international clients. I was completely absorbed in work, but always found time for Sylvestra, for our relationship. His company was also thriving. The smart home system gained recognition not only in our country but also abroad. Sylvestra traveled a lot, presenting his product at international exhibitions and conferences. Sometimes I accompanied him on these trips, combining pleasure with business, rest and finding new clients for Impact Media. Life was rich, interesting, full of events, but most importantly, I was happy, truly happy with a person who loved me as I am, didn't try to change me, didn't use me, didn't manipulate me, just loved me. Sometimes I remembered that day when I received the SMS from Santiago, "I'm leaving you and moving to Italy forever with my young beauty. Goodbye, Elisa. By the way, I've already transferred all our accounts to myself, and I took the money from the safe too." Then those words broke my heart, destroyed my faith in love and justice. But now I understood that they became the beginning of my path to true happiness. I answered him, "Good luck." A simple word, but it contained everything, my dignity, my strength, my determination not to give up. And I kept my word. I didn't give up. I fought and won not only against Santiago and Irma, but also against my fears, my insecurity, my habit of staying in the shadows. Now I knew, whatever happens, I'll handle it, because I'm strong, because I deserve better, and because true happiness comes to those who aren't afraid to fight for it. A year after the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. This became another gift of fate, another confirmation that everything in my life had worked out right. Sylvestra was on cloud 9 with happiness. He surrounded me with such care, such attention that sometimes I even had to ask him not to be too protective. I'm pregnant, not terminally ill. I laughed when he once again rushed to fulfill my slightest wish. I know, I just want you and the baby to feel as good as possible, he replied with the same smile. The pregnancy went well. I continued to work almost until giving birth, although at a calmer pace. Fortunately, the company was already stable enough to function for some time without my constant presence. In one of the last days before maternity leave, I received an unexpected letter from Irma. Congratulations on your pregnancy. Heard from mutual acquaintances. Hope you're doing well. And sorry for everything, Irma. I looked at these lines for a long time, not knowing what to think. Was it sincere repentance or another manipulation? I didn't know and decided not to respond. The past remained in the past, and I didn't want to return to it, especially now when I was so happy. Our daughter was born in spring on a bright sunny day. We named her Sophia, which means wisdom, because wisdom is what comes through trials, through pain, through overcoming, what I acquired on my journey. Looking at my daughter's small face, I thought about the path I had traveled, about betrayal, about struggle, about victories and defeats, about how I almost lost everything but found the strength to fight and win. And I knew I would tell her this story when she grew up, tell her how important it is to believe in yourself, to stand your ground, not to let others determine your worth, how important it is not to give up, even when it seems the whole world is against you. Because, in the end, this is what determines our fate, not what happens to us, but how we react to it, not what others do to us, but what we do in response. Santiago thought he had deceived me, robbed me, left me with nothing, but in reality, he gave me the greatest gift, freed me from illusions, made me open my eyes, see the truth, and gave me a chance to find true happiness, true love, true life. Now, holding my daughter in my arms, I could say with a clear heart, "Thank you, Santiago. You didn't know what you did for me." Perhaps someday I'll tell him this in person, or maybe not. Now it didn't matter. What mattered was only that I had found my happiness, my path, my truth. And if that SMS came to me again, I would again answer, "Good luck." But now it wouldn't be just a display of dignity in a moment of pain, it would be a sincere wish, because I understood, true happiness is only possible when you are free from hatred, from resentment, from the desire for revenge. I am free, I am happy, and this is the best revenge I could have devised.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.